The old woman dropped her purse, and for 3 unforgettable seconds, the entire restaurant seemed to stop breathing. It happened during the busiest part of the dinner rush at Bellissimo Bistro, a cozy Italian restaurant tucked between brick buildings in downtown Boston. Plates clattered. Waiters hurried between crowded tables. Conversations blended into a steady hum. Then the elderly woman bent down to pick up her purse, struggled to stand, and suddenly looked overwhelmed. She spoke quickly, her voice trembling with emotion. The problem was that nobody around her understood a single word she was saying. The hostess froze. A waiter exchanged confused looks with another employee. Several customers glanced over but quickly returned to their meals. The woman continued speaking, her hands shaking slightly. Her accent was unmistakably Italian. Her words carried frustration, sadness, and a hint of panic. Then a voice answered her. Soft. Calm. Perfectly fluent. Signora, vi tutto bene? Mi lascia aiutare? The old woman immediately looked up. So did everyone else. Standing beside her was Sophia Bennett, one of the restaurant's waitresses. She knelt beside the woman and continued speaking in smooth, natural Italian. Not textbook Italian. Not tourist Italian. The kind spoken by someone who truly understood the language. The elderly woman's eyes widened. Relief instantly replaced the anxiety on her face. Within seconds, the tension disappeared. Sophia helped gather the contents of the purse and gently guided the woman back into her chair. The older woman reached for Sophia's hand and said something that made both of them smile. Several nearby customers watched with curiosity. But nobody was more surprised than the man sitting near the back corner of the restaurant. Luca Moretti slowly lowered the wine glass he had been holding. For a moment, he forgot about the business meeting happening at his table. He forgot about the executives speaking to him. He forgot about the contracts waiting for his signature. His attention was completely fixed on the young waitress across the room. Because the elderly woman Sophia was comforting happened to be his mother. Maria Moretti had arrived from Italy only 2 days earlier. She loved America, but she often struggled when people could not understand her. Luca had spent years watching strangers politely smile, while failing to understand the warmth hidden behind her words. Yet this waitress had understood every sentence. More importantly, she had treated Maria like family. Luca watched as his mother laughed. Actually laughed. The sound caught him off guard. His mother had smiled before, of course. But lately those moments had become rare. Since moving farther from Italy and losing many lifelong friends to time and distance, Maria carried a quiet loneliness she rarely discussed. Yet now she sat in a crowded restaurant talking animatedly with a complete stranger. Sophia smiled, nodded, and answered in flawless Italian. Maria looked delighted. "Who is she?" Luca asked quietly. One of the executives at his table followed his gaze. "The waitress?" Luca nodded without looking away. Across the room, Sophia finally returned to work. She picked up a tray and disappeared into the crowd of customers, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But Luca could not stop watching her. Because for the first time in years, he had just witnessed something money could not buy. He had seen someone make his mother feel at home. Sophia Bennett did not notice the billionaire watching her. If she had, she probably would have laughed at the idea. Her attention was focused on surviving another exhausting Thursday night. By the time Bellissimo Bistro finally closed, her feet hurt, her shoulders ached, and she still had 3 chapters to read before morning. The restaurant lights dimmed one section at a time while employees cleaned tables and stacked chairs. Outside, cold Boston air pressed against the windows. Christmas decorations glowed across the street, casting colorful reflections onto the wet pavement. Sophia carried a tray into the kitchen and checked the time. Almost 11 o'clock. Another long day completed. Most customers never realized she lived 2 completely different lives. During the day, Sophia attended graduate language courses at Boston University. During the evening, she worked at the restaurant to pay tuition, rent, and every other expense life managed to invent. Sleep had become a luxury. Free time had practically disappeared. Yet she refused to complain. Her father had taught her something years ago. If you are lucky enough to have an opportunity, work hard enough to deserve it. That lesson had stayed with her long after he was gone. As she finished organizing receipts behind the counter, her manager approached. "Nice work tonight," he said. "Especially with that Italian lady." Sophia smiled. "She reminded me of someone." "Family?" "Sort of." The answer brought back memories she rarely shared. Florence. Narrow streets filled with music. Fresh bread from corner bakeries. Summers spent listening to neighbors argue passionately about soccer and politics. Most people assumed Sophia had learned Italian in school. The truth was far more personal. She had spent part of her childhood in Italy while her father worked as a visiting language professor. Those years shaped her life in ways she still carried every day. She remembered elderly women teaching her recipes she could barely pronounce. Shop owners greeting customers by name. Entire neighborhoods treating strangers like relatives. Italy had never truly left her heart. Her phone buzzed. A message from her roommate. "Do not forget tomorrow is rent day." Sophia laughed quietly. As if she could forget. She slipped her phone into her coat pocket and stepped outside. Snowflakes drifted through the cold night air. Boston looked beautiful during December, but beauty did not pay bills. She pulled her coat tighter and started walking toward the subway station. Several blocks away, another conversation was taking place. Luca Moretti sat inside the back seat of a black luxury sedan moving through downtown traffic. His executives had finally stopped discussing business 10 minutes earlier. Normally he appreciated the silence. Tonight his thoughts kept returning to the same person. The waitress. "You have been unusually distracted," said his mother from across the seat. Luca glanced up. Maria was smiling. That alone made him suspicious. "I am not distracted. You have looked out the window for 20 minutes. Boston has windows." Maria laughed. "She was very sweet." Luca sighed. "Mama." "What?" "I know that tone." "What tone?" "The matchmaking tone." Maria looked offended for approximately 3 seconds. Then she smiled again. "I simply liked her." Luca stared out the window. The truth was that he liked her too. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she spoke Italian fluently, though that surprised him. What stayed with him was something much simpler. Kindness. Completely genuine kindness. She had helped his mother without hesitation. Without expecting recognition. Without knowing who they were. In Luca's world, that had become increasingly rare. The car stopped at a red light. Across the street stood a bookstore decorated with Christmas lights. Families moved between shops carrying gifts and coffee cups. For a brief moment, Luca remembered something he had not thought about in years. His father once said that the most important people enter your life when you are busy looking somewhere else. Luca dismissed the thought immediately. Then he remembered Sophia's smile. And somehow, dismissing it became much harder. Sophia expected the next evening to be exactly like every other shift. She would take orders, refill water glasses, smile politely, and spend the final hour wondering whether she could survive another semester on 4 hours of sleep. Instead, the moment she walked into Bellissimo Bistro, her manager approached with an expression she had never seen before. "You have regulars now," he announced. Sophia laughed. "That is impossible. Table 12 disagrees." Sophia followed his gaze. Sitting near the window were Maria Moretti and her son. The elegant Italian woman immediately brightened when she spotted Sophia. She lifted a hand and waved enthusiastically. Several nearby customers turned to look. Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You came back," she said as she approached their table. Maria answered in Italian before Sophia could even finish speaking. Within seconds, the two women were chatting comfortably. Luca watched the exchange with quiet amusement. Yesterday his mother had spoken more during dinner than she had during some entire weeks. Tonight appeared to be no different. Sophia recommended a few menu specials, answered Maria's questions, and promised to return after taking care of another table. As she walked away, Maria leaned toward her son. "I like her," Luca sighed. "You have known her for less than 24 hours. That was enough." "For what?" Maria smiled mysteriously and picked up her menu. Luca knew that smile. It usually meant trouble. Throughout the evening, Sophia found herself stopping at table 12 more often than necessary. Not intentionally. It simply happened. Maria wanted stories about Boston. Then stories about Italy. Then stories about Sophia's studies. Somehow every conversation flowed naturally. At one point, Maria asked a question that caught Sophia off guard. "Where did you learn to speak Italian so beautifully?" Sophia hesitated before answering. "I lived in Florence when I was a little girl." Maria's eyes widened. "Florence? My father taught languages there for several years." "Which neighborhood?" Sophia told her. The older woman looked genuinely surprised. "We lived only a few miles away." Luca glanced up from his espresso. For a moment, nobody spoke. The coincidence seemed almost too strange. Sophia laughed softly. "Small world." "Very small," Maria replied. Later that evening, while Sophia delivered desserts to another table, Luca found himself watching her again. He noticed the way she remembered customers' names. The way she stopped to help an elderly man with his coat. The way she smiled at exhausted parents trying to manage restless children. None of it appeared rehearsed. None of it seemed calculated. She moved through the restaurant as though kindness was simply part of her nature. In Luca's world, people often behaved differently when they wanted something. Sophia wanted nothing. That made her impossible to ignore. As closing time approached, Maria excused herself to visit the restroom. For the first time all evening, Luca and Sophia found themselves alone at the table. An unexpected silence settled between them. "Your mother is wonderful," Sophia said. Luca smiled. "She would be thrilled to hear you say that. She reminds me of people I knew in Florence. That is probably why she likes you." Sophia laughed. "Probably? Definitely." Their eyes met for a brief moment. Then Sophia noticed something unusual. Beneath Luca's confident appearance, there was a trace of loneliness she could not quite explain. The same loneliness she had glimpsed the previous night. Before she could ask about it, Maria returned carrying something in her hand. A small silver pendant hanging from a delicate chain. She stopped abruptly the moment she saw Sophia. Her expression changed. Completely. "Where did you get that necklace?" Maria asked quietly. Sophia touched the pendant resting against her collarbone. "This?" Maria nodded. Suddenly the warmth in her face gave way to astonishment. Luca looked from his mother to Sophia, confused. Because whatever Maria had just recognized, it was clearly something she never expected to see again. Sophia looked down at the pendant resting against her collarbone. She had worn it nearly every day for as long as she could remember. Until that moment, nobody had ever reacted to it the way Maria just had. "My father gave it to me," Sophia said carefully. Maria stared at the small silver piece as if she were looking at a ghost from another lifetime. "Are you certain?" she asked. Sophia nodded. "He gave it to me when I was 9. Luca watched the exchange with growing curiosity. His mother was rarely surprised by anything. Yet now she seemed completely shaken. Maria slowly sat down and gestured toward the necklace. "May I see it?" Sophia hesitated for only a second before unclasping the chain and placing it in Maria's hand. The older woman examined it closely. Her fingers trembled slightly. Then she turned it over. On the back was a tiny engraved symbol. The moment Maria saw it, she closed her eyes. "Madonna mia," she whispered. Luca leaned forward. "Mama, what is it?" Maria opened her eyes and looked at him. "This pendant belonged to your grandmother." Silence settled over the table. Sophia blinked. "I am sorry." "What?" Maria carefully handed the necklace back. "My husband's mother owned one exactly like this." "Exactly like this?" Sophia repeated. The engraving. The design. Even the chain. Luca frowned. There must be thousands of necklaces that look similar. Not this one. Maria's voice remained calm but certain. This piece was custom made in Florence many years ago. Sophia stared at the pendant resting in her palm. Suddenly it seemed heavier somehow. That cannot be possible. Maria nodded slowly. I agree. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Around them, employees continued cleaning tables. Soft Italian music drifted from hidden speakers. Yet the small restaurant suddenly felt much smaller. Tell me about your father, Maria said gently. Sophia smiled. He was a language professor. Did he ever mention where he got the necklace? Sophia thought for a moment. Then a memory surfaced. Actually, yes. Maria and Luca immediately focused on her. He told me it came from a family who helped us when we first arrived in Florence. Maria exchanged a quick glance with Luca. Helped your family? We were struggling at the time, Sophia explained. My father never liked discussing money, but I know things were difficult. He always said a local family showed us extraordinary kindness. Did he tell you their name? Luca asked. Sophia shook her head. No. He only said they changed our lives. Maria sat back in her chair. Her expression softened. Interesting. Luca noticed the look immediately. His mother knew something. Perhaps more than she was saying. Before he could ask another question, Sophia's manager called her from across the room. A large party had just arrived unexpectedly. Sorry, Sophia said, standing. Duty calls. Maria smiled warmly. Of course. Sophia clipped the necklace back around her neck and hurried away. Yet as she moved through the restaurant, she could feel their eyes following her. Especially Luca's. An hour later, Bellissimo Bistro finally closed. Sophia finished her paperwork and stepped into the cold December night. Snowflakes drifted beneath the glow of streetlights. She walked toward the subway station, replaying the conversation in her mind. The pendant. Florence. The mysterious family. None of it made sense. Meanwhile, several blocks away, Luca and Maria sat inside their car. You know something, Luca said. Maria looked out the window. Perhaps. Mama. She smiled. Do you remember your father's scholarship foundation in Florence? Luca frowned. Of course. Do you remember one particular family your parents helped many years ago? Luca searched his memory. Then his eyes widened slightly. Maria noticed immediately. Yes, she said quietly. The same thought just crossed my mind. Luca looked back toward the restaurant disappearing behind them. For the first time since meeting Sophia Bennett, he realized this story might have begun long before either of them ever walked into Bellissimo Bistro. Sophia barely slept that night. The conversation about the pendant followed her home, lingered through her studies, and remained in the back of her mind during every lecture the next morning. By afternoon, she had convinced herself it was probably a coincidence. After all, Florence was a large city. Families helped one another all the time. Yet something about Maria's reaction refused to leave her alone. That evening, Bellissimo Bistro was quieter than usual. A light snowfall had covered Boston in white, keeping many customers at home. Sophia appreciated the slower pace. It gave her time to think. Unfortunately, thinking only produced more questions. Around 6 o'clock, the restaurant door opened. Sophia looked up from the counter and immediately smiled. Maria Moretti entered first, wrapped in an elegant cream-colored coat. Luca followed a few steps behind. For some reason, seeing them again felt strangely comforting. I had a feeling you would be here, Sophia said as she approached. And I had a feeling you would say that, Maria replied with a grin. Within minutes, the three settled into an easy rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. The restaurant faded into the background as conversations flowed between tables, languages, and memories. Maria asked Sophia about her studies. Sophia asked Maria about Italy. Luca mostly listened, though he occasionally added a story that made both women laugh. At one point, Maria excused herself to take a phone call outside. The moment she disappeared through the front door, a rare silence settled between Sophia and Luca. Neither seemed quite sure how to begin. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. "Your mother is trying very hard to learn everything about me." Luca laughed softly. "That means she likes you. Should I be worried?" "Probably." Sophia smiled. "At least you are honest." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. The warm glow of hanging lights reflected across the restaurant windows. Outside, snow drifted through the evening air. Inside, holiday music played softly from hidden speakers. It felt strangely peaceful. "Can I ask you something?" Luca said. "Of course. Your father. The family that helped you in Florence. Did he ever tell you anything specific about them?" Sophia shook her head. "Not much." She paused. "Only that they supported us when we needed it most." Luca leaned forward slightly. "How?" "Housing at first. Then educational assistance. My father said someone believed in him before anyone else did." She smiled at the memory. "He never forgot it." Luca's expression grew thoughtful. "Neither did they." Sophia blinked. "What do you mean?" Before Luca could answer, Maria returned. The older woman sat down carrying a small envelope. Her expression immediately told Sophia this was not an ordinary conversation anymore. "There is something you should see," Maria said gently. She placed the envelope on the table. Sophia opened it carefully. Inside was an old photograph. The image showed a younger version of Maria standing beside an elegant couple in Florence many years earlier. Behind them stood a university building. Sophia stared at the picture. Then her eyes widened. She recognized the man standing near the edge of the photograph. "That is my father," she whispered. Maria nodded slowly. "Yes." Sophia looked closer. The image was unmistakable. Her father looked younger, but there was no doubt. Her breath caught. "How is this possible?" Maria reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "Because the family your father spoke about all those years was ours." The restaurant seemed to disappear around her. Conversations faded. Music vanished. Everything narrowed to that single sentence. Sophia looked from the photograph to Maria, then to Luca. Neither appeared surprised. Which meant they had suspected the truth long before she had. Suddenly the pendant around her neck no longer felt like a coincidence. It felt like a message traveling across decades, quietly leading two families back toward each other. Sophia stared at the photograph long after Maria finished speaking. The image trembled slightly in her hands. Not because she was cold. Because suddenly an entire chapter of her life had been rewritten. For years she had heard fragments of the story. Her father would occasionally mention a generous family in Florence. A family that appeared during one of the most difficult periods of their lives. A family that believed in him when opportunities were scarce and money was even scarcer. Yet he never revealed names. He never talked about wealth. He only spoke about kindness. Now that kindness had faces. And those faces were sitting across from her. "I do not understand," Sophia said quietly. Maria smiled. "Neither did I at first." Luca leaned back in his chair. "My grandfather established an educational foundation in Florence many years ago." Sophia listened carefully. "The foundation supported promising teachers, researchers, and professors." "My father," she whispered. Luca nodded. "Your father." For several seconds, Sophia could not find words. She remembered the apartment where they lived when she was young. Small. Modest. Filled with books. She remembered watching her father work late into the night while trying to build a future for their family. Most of all, she remembered how grateful he always seemed whenever Italy was mentioned. "He never forgot what your family did," she said. Maria's eyes softened. "And apparently your father never forgot us." She glanced toward the pendant. "That necklace belonged to Luca's grandmother. She often gave gifts to families she cared about." Sophia instinctively touched the silver pendant. Suddenly it felt less like jewelry and more like a bridge connecting two different lives. "Why did nobody tell me?" she asked. "Perhaps your father wanted you to build your own future," Maria replied. "Not live inside old debts." The answer sounded exactly like something her father would say. The thought made her smile. A few minutes later, the restaurant officially closed. Chairs were stacked. Lights dimmed. Employees headed home. Yet none of them seemed eager to leave. The conversation had become something far more meaningful than a casual dinner. Eventually, they stepped outside together. Snow drifted softly through the Boston night. Streetlights painted golden circles across the sidewalk. The city felt quieter than usual. For a moment, the three stood there watching the snow fall. Then Maria suddenly checked the time. "Oh no." Luca looked at her. "What?" "I promised Isabella the first would call her." "You can call her from the hotel." "Exactly." Maria smiled innocently. Far too innocently. Then she looked at Sophia. "Would you be terribly offended if I left my son here for a few minutes?" Luca immediately recognized the expression. "Trouble." "Mama." "What?" "Do not start." "Start what?" Sophia laughed despite herself. Maria looked delighted. "See? She laughs at my jokes. I already approve." Before either of them could respond, Maria kissed her son on the cheek, hugged Sophia, and disappeared toward the waiting car. The driver opened the door. Seconds later, she was gone. Silence settled over the snowy sidewalk. Sophia and Luca stood beneath the glow of a nearby street lamp. For the first time since meeting, there was no restaurant, no customers, and no Maria creating conversation between them. Just the two of them. "Well," Sophia said. "That was subtle." Luca laughed. "You have no idea." They began walking slowly down the sidewalk. Snow crunched softly beneath their shoes. Storefronts sparkled with Christmas lights. Somewhere nearby, holiday music drifted from a cafe preparing to close. Neither seemed in a hurry to leave. "Can I tell you something?" Luca asked after a few moments. "Of course." He looked ahead instead of at her. "The first night I came to the restaurant, I told myself I was only curious." Sophia felt her heart beat a little faster. "And now?" Luca smiled. "Now I am not entirely sure that was true." Sophia looked ahead as they walked through the softly falling snow, but Luca's words lingered between them long after he finished speaking. The city around them seemed quieter now. Storefronts glowed with Christmas lights. Cars passed occasionally along the wet streets. Somewhere in the distance, church bells marked the hour. Yet neither seemed eager for the evening to end. "So you were not just curious?" Sophia finally asked. Luca smiled. "I was curious." "That sounds like only half the answer." "Probably because it is." Sophia laughed softly. She liked that he never seemed to rush conversations. Most people filled silence because they feared it. Luca seemed comfortable letting thoughts settle. They continued walking until they reached a small plaza decorated with a towering Christmas tree. Hundreds of white lights shimmered against the night sky. Families wandered through the square carrying shopping bags and cups of hot chocolate. Children pointed excitedly at decorations while holiday music floated through hidden speakers. Sophia stopped near the tree and looked up. "This was always my favorite part of December," she said. "The lights?" Luca asked. "The feeling." He nodded. "That makes sense." "What about you?" she asked. "What was your favorite part?" Luca considered the question. "The people." Sophia glanced at him. "Not the food?" "Definitely the food." She laughed again. "Now that sounds more Italian." Luca smiled. For a moment neither spoke. Then Sophia noticed something unusual. The guarded distance she had seen when they first met was disappearing. Not completely. But enough. She could see it in the way he looked at people passing by. In the way he talked about his family. In the way he listened whenever she spoke. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything." "Why did you come back?" Luca looked surprised. To the restaurant? Yes. He exhaled slowly. Do you want the polite answer? No, good. A faint smile appeared. Neither do I. Sophia folded her arms and waited. Luca glanced toward the Christmas tree before answering. The first night, I could not stop thinking about what happened with my mother. Sophia listened quietly. Most people see her age before they see her. His voice softened. You saw her. The simple statement caught her off guard. Luca continued. You treated her like she mattered. You spoke to her in the language that reminds her of home. You gave her something I have spent years trying to give her. What? Sophia asked quietly. Joy. The word settled between them. Honest. Uncomplicated. Real. For a moment, Sophia did not know what to say. Finally, she looked away. Anyone would have helped her. Luca shook his head. That is not true. Sophia wanted to argue. The problem was that she could hear complete sincerity in his voice. Then another thought occurred to her. And your mother? She asked. What about her? How much of this is her idea? Luca laughed. A real laugh this time. More than I would like to admit. Sophia smiled. I knew it. She has been asking questions about you every day. That is slightly terrifying. You should hear the questions she asks me. Before Sophia could respond, Luca's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. The smile immediately disappeared. Not because he was upset. Because he was surprised. Everything okay? Sophia asked. Luca looked at the message again. That depends. On what? On whether my mother has completely lost her mind. Sophia raised an eyebrow. That sounds serious. Luca turned the screen toward her. A single message filled the display. Tomorrow. Lunch. My house. Bring Sophia. No excuses? Sophia stared at the message. Then she looked at Luca. He looked back at her. For 2 full seconds neither said a word. Then they both started laughing. Neither of them realized that the invitation waiting for them tomorrow would reveal one final piece of the story their families had unknowingly shared for years. The next afternoon, Sophia stood outside a beautiful brownstone overlooking Boston Harbor and wondered for the 10th time whether accepting Maria's invitation had been a mistake. Not because she did not want to go. Because she still could not quite believe any of this was real. A week earlier, she had been balancing classes, rent payments, and restaurant shifts. Now she was standing in front of the home of one of the most influential families she had unknowingly been connected to since childhood. The front door opened before she could knock. Maria appeared immediately. Finally, she declared. I was beginning to think you changed your mind. Sophia laughed. I am 2 minutes early. Exactly. Suspicious behavior. Before Sophia could answer, Maria pulled her into a warm hug and guided her inside. The house felt elegant without being intimidating. Family photographs lined the walls. Shelves overflowed with books. Christmas decorations appeared everywhere, from garlands along stair railings to ornaments hanging from a towering tree in the living room. It felt less like a billionaire's home and more like a place where people genuinely lived. That surprised her. Beautiful, is it not? Maria asked. It really is. Good. Then perhaps you can convince my son to spend more time here. A familiar voice sounded from the next room. I can hear you. Maria smiled triumphantly. That was the goal. Luca appeared carrying 2 cups of espresso. Sophia noticed he looked different outside restaurants and business settings. More relaxed? More approachable. Less guarded. He handed her a cup. Welcome to the family interrogation. I knew it, Sophia said. This was a trap. A very sophisticated trap. The afternoon unfolded more naturally than she expected. They shared lunch, exchanged stories, and spent hours looking through old photographs stored in boxes Maria had insisted on bringing out. One image after another revealed pieces of history neither Sophia nor Luca had fully understood before. Then Maria opened a worn leather album. "This," she announced, "is what I wanted you to see." Sophia moved closer. Inside the album were photographs from Florence nearly 20 years earlier. University events, community programs, scholarship ceremonies. Then she saw him, her father, standing beside Luca's grandparents, smiling, happy, young. Sophia felt her chest tighten. "I have never seen these before," she whispered. Maria gently turned another page. A folded letter slipped loose and landed on the table. Luca picked it up. "What is this?" Maria frowned. "I have no idea." The paper looked old, carefully preserved. Luca unfolded it. His eyes widened slightly as he read the first line. "It is from Sophia's father." Silence settled over the room. Sophia stared at him. "A letter?" Luca nodded. "To my grandfather." Maria looked equally surprised. "Read it," Luca continued quietly. The letter thanked the Moretti family for believing in someone nobody else believed in. It described opportunities that changed a life. It spoke about kindness, dignity, and hope. Then came the final paragraph. Luca stopped reading. His voice softened. "What?" Sophia asked. Luca looked directly at her. "Your father wrote that one day he hoped to repay the kindness shown to his family." Sophia swallowed. "And?" Luca glanced back at the page. "He said that if fate was generous, perhaps their families would meet again someday." Nobody spoke. The room suddenly felt very still. Outside, snow drifted past the windows. Christmas lights reflected softly across the glass. Maria quietly wiped away a tear. "Your father was a wise man," she said. Sophia looked down at the letter. A letter written decades earlier. A wish written by a man who could never have known how strangely accurate it would become. Then she noticed Luca watching her. Not the photograph. Not the letter. Her. And for the first time, she realized there was something he had been trying to say for days but had not yet found the courage to speak aloud. The rest of the afternoon passed in a warm blur of stories, photographs, and memories. Yet Sophia could not stop thinking about the look she had caught in Luca's eyes. It was not uncertainty. It was not hesitation. It was something deeper. Something that had been quietly growing between them since the night she first helped his mother at Bellissimo Bistro. By early evening, the snow outside had grown heavier. Boston looked as though it had been wrapped in white silk. Christmas lights glowed from windows across the harbor. Eventually, Maria announced that she needed a short nap before dinner preparations. Neither Sophia nor Luca believed that explanation for a second. "Of course you do," Luca said. Maria smiled innocently. "I am an old woman. You spent 4 hours telling stories without stopping." "Exactly. Exhausting." Sophia laughed. Maria kissed both of them on the cheek and disappeared upstairs. The moment she was gone, silence settled over the living room. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind that appears when two people already understand more than they need to say. Sophia stood near the large Christmas tree. Hundreds of tiny lights reflected in the ornaments. The silver pendant rested against her sweater. The letter from her father remained folded carefully in her hands. Luca walked toward the window overlooking the harbor. For several moments neither spoke. Then Sophia broke the silence. "My father would have loved today." Luca turned toward her. "I think so too." She smiled softly. "He always believed everything happened for a reason." "Did you?" Sophia considered the question. "Not always." "And now?" She looked around the room. The photographs. The pendant. The letter. The family that had unknowingly remained connected to hers for decades. "Now I am starting to." Luca nodded slowly. "Good." The simple answer made her smile. Then she noticed something. "You are nervous." Luca looked genuinely surprised. "Am I?" "Very. That is unfortunate." "Why?" "Because I was trying to hide it." Sophia laughed. "Not successfully." For the first time since she had met him, the confident billionaire seemed almost unsure of himself. Somehow that made him feel more real than ever. He took a slow breath. "There is something I have wanted to tell you." Her heart immediately began beating faster. "Okay." Luca looked directly at her. No distractions. No business meetings. No restaurant customers. No family interruptions. Just honesty. "The first night I returned to the restaurant, I told myself it was because of my mother." Sophia listened quietly. "The second night, I told myself it was because of the pendant." A small smile appeared. "The third night, I blamed curiosity." Sophia already knew where this was going. Yet hearing it still mattered. Luca stepped closer. "The truth is that none of those reasons were the real reason." Outside, snow continued falling beyond the windows. The harbor lights shimmered across the water. Christmas music drifted softly from another room. "What was the real reason?" Sophia asked. Luca smiled. Warmly. Honestly. "You." The answer hung gently in the air between them. Not dramatic. Not complicated. Just true. Sophia lowered her eyes for a moment before looking back up. "You know," she said softly, "you are not the only one who kept finding reasons to come back." Luca laughed. The sound filled the room. Real. Unfiltered. Happy. Then neither of them spoke for several seconds. They did not need to. Because some moments explained themselves. At that exact moment, a floorboard creaked upstairs. Both glanced toward the staircase. A second later, they spotted Maria peeking around the corner. She immediately disappeared when she realized she had been caught. Sophia burst into laughter. Luca covered his face. "I am never going to hear the end of this." "Probably not." "Definitely not." They laughed together as church bells began ringing somewhere across the city. Christmas Eve had arrived. Snow continued falling beyond the windows. The lights on the trees sparkled softly around them. And for the first time in decades, two families connected by kindness, gratitude, and fate were finally together again. Later that evening, as they shared espresso beside the glowing tree, Maria quietly smiled and watched them talk. She remembered something Luca's grandmother used to say many years ago. Some people learn a language. Others become the reason your heart remembers how to speak. Looking at Sophia and Luca beneath the Christmas lights, she knew exactly what those words meant.